I remember the evening light filtering through the blinds, casting long shadows across our living room floor. Laura was bustling about, a whirlwind of energy and excitement as she prepared for my upcoming birthday dinner. Our kids, Mia and Alex, were caught up in their mother's enthusiasm, their laughter filling the house with warmth. It was a moment of simple joy, a snapshot of our life that I would later cling to during darker times. "Are you sure you don't want to pick the restaurant this year?" I asked Laura, watching her as she scrolled through her phone, probably checking reviews for the umpteenth time. She looked up, her eyes sparkling with that familiar stubbornness I'd fallen in love with. "Ethan, trust me. This place is perfect. You're going to love it," she assured me, her confidence infectious. I couldn't help but smile, leaning back in my chair. "All right, I trust you. But if this place doesn't have the world's best steak, I might have to reconsider." Laura laughed, a sound that seemed to echo around our happy home. "Deal, but prepare to be amazed." The night of the dinner arrived all too quickly. Emma, the teenager from down the street, came over to watch Mia and Alex. She was a responsible girl, one we trusted implicitly with our most precious treasures. Then by 9, and no extra sweets, Laura instructed, her tone firm but affectionate. Emma nodded, her eyes wide. "Got it, Mrs. Thompson. We're going to have a great time, aren't we?" she said, turning to the kids with a grin. Mia and Alex cheered in agreement, already pulling Emma towards their treasure trove of board games. As we drove to the bistro, I couldn't shake a feeling of unease. It was unlike me. I was usually the calm one, the steadying force in our relationship. But something about the night felt off, a premonition of change that I couldn't quite grasp. The bistro was indeed a hidden gem, tucked away on a side street near the college campus. Its ambience was cozy, intimate, perfect for what I thought would be a quiet celebration. But the arrival of Julian Duval and his entourage turned the evening on its head. Laura's reaction to him was immediate and intense. She was usually so composed, but in that moment, she was anything but. Her fascination was palpable, and I felt a twinge of something unfamiliar. Jealousy, perhaps, or was it fear? "Ethan, you know who that is, right? Julian Duval, the author. I've read all of his books," she whispered, her gaze fixed on the man who had inadvertently shifted the evening's atmosphere. I tried to keep my voice light, despite the growing knot in my stomach. I didn't realize we were dining with celebrities tonight. Laura didn't seem to hear the edge in my voice. "He's brilliant, Ethan. His stories, they're just real," I offered, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "Yes, exactly. Real," she agreed, missing the sarcasm. The night unfolded in a blur. Laura's interaction with Julian, her decision to stay behind as I left with a polite excuse, felt like the first undeniable crack in the foundation of our marriage. It was a crack I hadn't seen coming, one I wasn't prepared to acknowledge, not yet. As I drove home alone, the silent streets seemed to echo with the unsaid words between us. The unease I had felt earlier had crystallized into something sharper, a realization that our perfect life might be more fragile than I had ever imagined. That night, the unseen crack widened, a harbinger of the storm that was yet to come. The bistro was a quaint, dimly lit space, with the kind of old-world charm that instantly made you lower your voice and lean in closer. Laura had chosen well. The tables were draped in white linen, and soft jazz filled the air, creating an ambience that was both intimate and inviting. It was the perfect setting for what should have been a perfect evening. Laura was radiant, her eyes alight with anticipation. She had always had this ability to make any occasion feel special, and tonight was no exception. As we took our seats, I reached across the table, covering her hand with mine. "This place is incredible, Laura. You've outdone yourself." She squeezed my hand, her smile wide. "Happy birthday, Ethan. There's no one I'd rather be here with." Our meal started off beautifully. The food was exquisite, each course outdoing the last, and for a while, it was easy to get lost in the celebration, to forget the unease that had shadowed me on the drive over. We shared stories, laughed, and for a moment, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. That is, until Julian Duval walked in. His presence was like a switch being flipped. The atmosphere shifted, and I watched, perplexed and increasingly uncomfortable, as Laura's attention was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. Julian was undeniably charismatic, his laughter carrying across the room, his smile bright and engaging. When he approached our table, It was with the ease of someone who was used to being welcomed everywhere. Laura Thompson, as I live and breathe. I had no idea you'd be here tonight. Laura stood, her reaction immediate, and to my surprise, quite flustered. Julian, I'm such a fan of your work. It's an honor to meet you. Julian's gaze flickered to me, and for a brief moment, I saw something like calculation in his eyes before he smiled. And you must be the lucky man who's captured Laura's heart. Ethan, was it? Yes, that's right, I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. And you're Julian DeVaugh, the author. Laura speaks very highly of your work. His smile widened, and he turned his attention back to Laura. I'm flattered, truly. And what a coincidence that we meet here, on such a special night. I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, Laura said quickly, too quickly. Actually, Ethan, Julian's latest book has this incredible scene set in a bistro just like this one. It's almost serendipitous, don't you think? I tried to smile, to share in her enthusiasm, but it felt strained. Serendipitous indeed. The conversation that followed was a blur of literary references and shared interests between Laura and Julian, a world I felt oddly excluded from. It was clear that Laura was captivated, her usual poise replaced by a girlish excitement that I hadn't seen in years. As the evening wore on, Julian extended an invitation to Laura to join his fan email list, promising exclusive insights into his upcoming work. I watched, a knot forming in my stomach, as Laura eagerly agreed, providing an email address I didn't recognize. Ethan, isn't this amazing? Julian's going to share his writing process with me. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Laura gushed, her eyes shining. I forced a smile, feeling a chasm opening up between us. That's great, Laura, really great. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. When it was time to leave, Laura's insistence on staying behind to talk more with Julian felt like a physical blow. Just go ahead, Ethan. I'll catch a ride and go home later, she said, her attention already turning back to Julian. As I walked out of the bistro alone, the cool night air did nothing to ease the tightness in my chest. The drive home was a lonely one, the silence a stark contrast to the laughter and warmth that had filled our evening just hours before. That night, the dinner that was meant to celebrate my birthday had instead laid bare the cracks in our marriage, cracks that, until then, I had been blind to. It was a revelation that would change everything. The house was silent when I returned, a stark reminder of the void Laura's absence had left. I sat in the dark living room, the ticking of the clock a constant reminder of the time passing, time that Laura was spending with Julian. The hours stretched on, each minute a weight adding to the growing realization that our marriage was on the precipice of something irreversible. When Laura finally came home, the early morning light was just beginning to peek through the curtains, casting a soft glow on her face. She looked different somehow, energized in a way that I hadn't seen in years. The sight of her, so alive yet so distant, was a gut punch. Ethan, are you still up? Her voice was soft, tinged with surprise and something akin to guilt. I stood, the words I had rehearsed all night suddenly hard to find. We need to talk, Laura. She nodded, taking a seat on the couch, her posture tense. I know. I'm sorry I stayed out so late. Julian and I just got caught up talking about his book, and it's not just about tonight, Laura. I interrupted, the frustration and hurt boiling over. It's about us. About what's been happening to us. Laura looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. I know things have been off between us, but tonight was just a conversation. It didn't mean anything. Didn't it? The skepticism in my voice was palpable, because from where I was sitting, it seemed like it meant a lot. To both of you. She sighed, a long, weary sound. Ethan, I love you. You have to believe that, but I can't deny that there's something missing for me. Something I've been trying to ignore. The honesty in her voice was a small comfort, but it did little to ease the pain. And you think you'll find that something with Julian? I don't know, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, but I feel like I have to find out. The finality in her words was a blow I hadn't anticipated. So what are you saying, Laura? What do you want? I need some time, Ethan. Time to figure out what I want. What I need. Her eyes met mine, and the turmoil within them mirrored my own. I think I should move out for a while. The suggestion hung between us, heavy and suffocating. The idea of Laura leaving, of our family being torn apart, was something I had never contemplated. And what about Mia and Alex? What do we tell them? My voice was steady, but inside I was reeling. We tell them the truth, that we need some time apart to work through some things, but that we both love them more than anything. Laura's resolve was clear, even as her voice cracked with emotion. The decision, once spoken aloud, became a catalyst for change. Laura moved out later that week, the absence of her presence in the house a constant aching reminder of the rift between us. Mia and Alex were confused and hurt, their innocent questions a daily reminder of the pain our decision had caused. In the weeks that followed, the silence of the house was a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. I oscillated between anger, despair, and a desperate hope for reconciliation. The decision to let Laura go, to give her the space she claimed to need, was a gamble, one that I feared might cost us everything. But it was a decision born out of love, out of a desire to see her happy, even if that happiness might ultimately lie away from me. It was a brutal realization, a test of love in its truest form. And as the days turned into weeks, I was left to wonder if our love was strong enough to survive the distance, or if the decision to part ways would be the final chapter in our story. The weeks following Laura's departure were a blur of confusion and heartache. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now stood as a silent testament to the chasm that had opened up within our family. Mia and Alex, too young to fully understand the complexities of adult relationships, were caught in the crossfire of emotions, their innocent questions often leaving me struggling for answers. One evening, as I was tucking Alex into bed, he looked up at me with his mother's eyes, brimming with unshed tears. "Dad, when is Mom coming home? Doesn't she miss us?" The question, so simple yet so loaded, caught me off guard. I sat down on the edge of his bed, searching for words that would soothe his troubled heart. "Buddy, your mom loves you very much. She needs some time to think about some things, but we're going to see her soon, okay?" Alex nodded, though the uncertainty in his eyes was a clear reflection of my own. "Okay, Dad, I just wish she was here." The conversation was a stark reminder of the impact our separation was having on our children, a burden they should never have had to bear. Mia, on the other hand, was more vocal about her feelings, her anger and confusion manifesting in outbursts that were uncharacteristic of the sweet-natured girl I knew. One afternoon, as I was trying to help her with her homework, she slammed her book shut, her frustration boiling over. "Why did Mom leave, Dad? Did we do something wrong?" Her voice was sharp, a shield against the vulnerability she felt. I reached out, pulling her into a hug, despite her resistance. "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes, adults have problems they need to work out. It's not about you or Alex. We both love you so much." Mina pulled away, her eyes searching mine. "But if you love each other, why can't you fix it?" Her question hit me like a physical blow, the innocence of her inquiry underscoring the complexity of the situation. "We're trying, Maya. We're trying." The conversations with my children were a bitter reminder of the fallout from Laura's decision to leave. The pain and confusion it had sown in their hearts were a constant weight on my own, a reminder of the stakes involved in the choices we were making. Laura and I met occasionally, trying to navigate the treacherous waters of co-parenting while dealing with our own tangled emotions. One such meeting, over coffee in a neutral space, quickly veered into dangerous territory as we attempted to discuss the future. "Ethan, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us, about everything," Laura began, her voice laced with an uncertainty I wasn't used to hearing from her. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for what was to come. And I think we need more time. I'm not ready to come back, not yet." Her eyes met mine, pleading for understanding. The words, though not unexpected, were a gut punch. More time. Right. And what about Mia and Alex? How much more time do they need to spend wondering why their mother isn't home? Laura flinched, the mention of our children's pain a clear strike. "I hate that I'm causing them pain, you know that. But how can I come back when I'm still so lost?" The conversation went in circles, a painful dance around the issues that had driven us apart. We parted that day with no clearer understanding than when we'd arrived, the chasm between us seemingly insurmountable. The fallout from Laura's departure and our ongoing separation was a living, breathing entity in our lives, affecting not just us, but the innocent lives we'd brought into this world. As the weeks turned into months, the hope for a simple resolution faded, leaving behind the stark realization that whatever came next would alter the course of our lives forever. As autumn turned to winter, the cold seeped into every corner of our lives, a constant reminder of the chill that had settled over our family. The festive season, once a time of joy and togetherness, loomed ahead like a specter, its cheer a stark contrast to the emptiness echoing through the halls of our home. It was during these long, dark nights that a shift began within me, a slow and painful awakening to the realities of our situation. The anger and betrayal that had fueled my days began to ebb, replaced by a profound sense of loss, not just for the partnership Laura and I had shared, but for the family we had built together. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the ghosts of Christmases past, a knock on the door jolted me from my reverie. Laura stood on the doorstep, her eyes reflecting the myriad of lights that lined the streets, a tentative peace offering in her hands. "Can I come in?" Her voice was soft, hesitant. I stepped aside, the familiar scent of her perfume a punch to the senses. We moved to the living room, an awkward silence settling between us. "I wanted to talk to you about Christmas," she began, breaking the silence. "I know it's been hard, but I don't want the kids to suffer because of us. I was thinking maybe we could spend it together for their sake." The suggestion, unexpected yet not unwelcome, sparked a flicker of hope in my chest. "Together? Are you sure that's a good idea?" Laura nodded, a determined look crossing her face. "Yes, I think it's important. For Maya and Alex, they need to see that we can still be a family, even if things are different." The conversation that followed was the most honest and open we had in months. We talked about our children, about the pain of separation, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. It was a tentative step towards understanding, a recognition of the love that still existed beneath the hurt and resentment. "Thank you," I said as Laura rose to leave, the weight of our conversation settling around us like a blanket, "for coming tonight, for thinking of the kids." Laura paused at the door, turning to look at me. "They're not the only reason I came tonight. I've missed this, our stalking. It's been too long." Her words hung in the air long after she had left, a bittersweet reminder of what we had lost and what might still be salvaged. That night, for the first time in months, I allowed myself to feel hope, a dangerous and fragile thing. Christmas arrived with a flurry of snow and laughter, the house once again filled with the sounds of our family. Watching Laura interact with Mia and Alex, the easy affection and love she showed them, I saw glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the life we had once shared. As we sat down to dinner, the kids chattering excitedly about the presents and the snow, Laura caught my eye, a silent acknowledgement passing between us. It was a moment of connection, a recognition of the journey we had been on and the uncertain road that lay ahead. The day passed in a blur of activity, and as the night drew in, Laura prepared to leave. Mia and Alex, exhausted from the day's excitement, had already fallen asleep, their innocent faces a stark contrast to the complexity of the emotions swirling around us. "Today was good," Laura said, her voice low. "Thank you for making it happen." "It was for the kids," I replied, the words feeling inadequate for the multitude of feelings I was experiencing. "Yes, but it was also for us," Laura countered, a hint of the old fire returning to her eyes. "We needed this, Ethan. To remember that beneath all the hurt, there's still something worth fighting for." Her words, spoken with such conviction, reignited the flicker of hope within me, a belief that perhaps our story wasn't over just yet. As I watched her leave, the snow gently falling around her, I realized that our awakening wasn't just about coming to terms with the past, but about the possibility of a future, however uncertain it might be. The awakening was ours to share, a journey back from the brink, guided by the love for our children and perhaps for each other. The weeks following our tentative Christmas truce were filled with cautious optimism. Laura and I had started to rebuild some semblance of communication, for the sake of our children and perhaps the remnants of what we once shared. However, the fragile peace we had managed to construct was about to be tested in a way neither of us could have anticipated. It was a cold, biting January evening when the truth came crashing down around us. I had just put Mia and Alex to bed and was sifting through some old emails when I stumbled upon a series of messages that would unravel the tenuous threads holding me together. They were from Laura's account, forgotten in the shared family computer, a digital confession of the affair that had torn our world apart. The details were irrelevant, the pain indescribable. I sat there, in the dim light of our home office, a sense of betrayal suffocating me. It wasn't just the affair. It was the depth of the deception, the realization that our life together had been built on a foundation of lies. I confronted Laura the next day, the emails printed out and lay bare between us like a physical chasm. Her reaction was a mix of shock, shame, and fear. Ethan, I don't know what to say, she stammered, her eyes not meeting mine. Say it's not true, I demanded, though the evidence was irrefutable. Tell me these emails mean nothing, that I'm wrong about all of this. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I can't. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I never wanted you to find out this way. Find out? So, you were planning on telling me. When, Laura? When were you going to share this little piece of our life together? My voice was laced with sarcasm, the hurt manifesting as anger. Laura tried to reach out to explain, but the words were hollow, the excuses and apologies too late. I was scared, she whispered. Scared of losing you, losing our family. I ended it, Ethan, I swear. It was a mistake. A mistake? I echoed, my heart breaking all over again. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home, Laura. This was a choice. You chose this. The conversation spiraled, a destructive dance of accusations and defenses. But beneath the anger and betrayal, there was an undercurrent of sorrow, a mourning for what had been irrevocably lost. In the days that followed, the exposure of Laura's affair became a turning point, not just for our relationship, but for my own journey of healing and understanding. The revelation forced me to confront the reality of our situation, to acknowledge the pain, but also to recognize the need to move forward, for my sake and for our children. The path ahead was uncertain, the wounds deep, but in the exposure of the darkest secrets, there was also a glimmer of hope. Hope for honesty, for forgiveness, and perhaps in time, for a new beginning. The days following the exposure were a blur, each moment stretching into the next, a continuous loop of hurt, confusion, and the daunting task of figuring out what comes next. Our home, once a sanctuary of warmth and love, felt cold and foreign, as if the walls themselves were mourning the death of our relationship. Laura and I had agreed to sit down and discuss the future, a conversation neither of us was prepared for but knew was necessary. The air between us was charged with a mix of emotions as we faced each other across the kitchen table, a physical representation of the distance that had grown between us. Ethan, I know I've caused unforgivable pain, Laura began, her voice steady but her hands trembling. And I understand if you can't ever forgive me. But I need you to know, from the bottom of my heart, I am sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Her apology hung in the air, heavy with the weight of our shattered past. I nodded, the anger that had fueled me beginning to ebb, leaving behind a profound sadness. Laura, your apology. I appreciate it, but it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the lies, the betrayal, I said, the words tasting bitter. I just don't know if I can move past this. If we can move past this. I know, and I don't expect you to decide anything now. I hope in time we can find a way to co-parent effectively. For Mia and Alex, she replied, her eyes pleading for understanding. The mention of our children brought a fresh wave of pain, a reminder of the innocent lives caught in the crossfire of our mistakes. Yes, Mia and Alex, they're what matter now. We need to ensure they feel loved and secure, no matter what happens between us. Laura nodded, a silent agreement to put our children first. I've been looking into counseling for them and for us. I think it could help us navigate this, whatever this is. Counseling, I repeated, considering the idea. It was a step, perhaps the first step towards healing, even if that healing meant moving forward separately. Okay, let's explore that. For the kids. As the conversation drew to a close, a sense of resolution settled over us, not a resolution of our relationship, but of our immediate path forward. The aftermath of Laura's affair had left deep scars, but in its wake, there was also an opportunity for growth, for change. In the weeks and months that followed, counseling provided a space for us to confront our pain, to communicate in ways we hadn't in years. It was a slow and often painful process, but it was also a testament to our commitment to our family, to ensuring that Mia and Alex had a stable and loving foundation. The aftermath of betrayal is a long and winding road, filled with unexpected turns and difficult lessons. But it is also a journey of self-discovery, of learning the strength of forgiveness and the power of resilience. For Laura and me, the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Our children would always be our priority, and whatever our relationship became, it would be built on a foundation of respect and a shared commitment to their well-being.